Welcome to Superintendent Radio Network. I'm Golf Course Industry Publisher plus Editor-in-Chief Guy Cipriano. This is episode number 22 of the Disease Discussion Podcast, and we have a terrific guest. Joining us is Josh Truan, the Director of Agronomy at Gamble Sands in Brewster, Washington. Josh started working at Gamble Sands in 2012 before anybody hit a shot on the resort's first course. He has some tremendous stories about the evolution of the resort, which will expand next year with the opening of its second 18-hole regulation course. On the podcast, Josh also shares how his team produces firm and fun playing conditions and his philosophies toward controlling multiple diseases, including fairy ring. Before we get going with Josh, a word from the disease discussion sponsor. The health and success of your course is top of mind for BASF, which is why Maxtima fungicide is formulated for use on any turf, at any temperature, anywhere on your course. This powerful solution is also one of the qualifying fungicides used in the Fairy Ring Support Program, structured for up to 90% control of your treated areas. And if control is not achieved, a support team is ready to provide a solution to the persistent problem. For more information, visit betterturf.basf.us. Now on to our awesome conversation with Josh. Well, Josh, thanks for joining the Disease Discussion Podcast. We are really looking forward to this conversation. And let's start with an inspiring question that's going to require some visualization here. When did you step foot on Gamble Sands for the first time, and what were your initial impressions when you saw that property?
So when I first got to Gamble Sands, I interviewed mid-September of 2012. They were seeding the first hole that day when I arrived on property. My dad and I came over. He lives over in the Seattle area, so I flew up to Bainbridge Island and Seattle, and then we drove over. And I remember driving around going, where the heck am I? Is there really a golf course up here? There's no way there's actually really a golf course up here. And we're going around up the highway. We turn up through this orchard and this gravel road, and we switch back up this hill. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to go up here and dive. This is where it ends right now. And we get up on top, and there it is. There's this golf course that these guys are building. And I'm thinking, man, there's not a lot here. We had a single white trailer. We had 2 gators, I think, one the Pro Gator, a tractor, and a couple, like one mower. I think they had like a walking greens mower at the time. And I was thinking to myself, boy, I hope I know what I'm getting myself into, because there's a lot to do.
I wasn't planning on asking this question, but there are a lot of our listeners who maybe have heard of Gamble Sands, but how would you describe where the heck it is located in the United States?
If you take a map of Washington and you try to throw a bullseye with a dart right in the middle of the state, it's about right there. It's right in the middle of the state. We're very much high desert. We're right along the Columbia River. We're actually at where the Columbia River and the Okanagan River come together. We're up on a bluff, and you have great vistas over the river and the surrounding town, followed by mountain ranges, Cascades in the background. It's about 3.5 hours out of downtown Seattle would be the best way to get there.
How large is the golf footprint at Gamble Sands, and how would you explain everything that you and your team are responsible for maintaining?
So we currently have 222 acres, and that includes the original Sands course, the par 3 course, the 2-acre putting course, and the new course. And that is just turf. That's irrigated turf. Of that irrigated turf, I'm going to go around and say right now with the new golf course, for about 160 of it are under 1/4 inch tall. So that's something we're very proud of, the fact that we grow our fairways so tight and so dense. And this is the vast expanse of shortgrass we have on property. Of that, we're about 800 acres total property. In that total property, we also do vegetative management of our native areas, removing obnoxious weeds, Russian thistle that comes up, all those things that, we've got to take care of just as good stewards of the land, which takes a lot more time than I think I realized early on. A couple of things in our purview is building maintenance. A couple winters ago, we built a hotel, and I didn't want to get laid off or didn't want to lay off any guys. So I kind of told ownership, hey, we can help. We can fix toilets, and we can paint bedrooms, and we can, clean the carpets, and we can do this. And so then we ended up getting this building maintenance department that's under our purview now. And it's been an interesting learning process. It's all kind of, learn as you go. It's definitely not golf course maintenance. It's not as structured as golf course maintenance is. But it's definitely a thing that I think is unique. And from a start, I like to think that we try to make the maintenance team almost invaluable to the property. And it kind of became this thing of what else can we do to help out? What else can we do? Because if you're not making money, you got to find ways to do things in-house. And for a while there, first couple of years, it was hard to make money being a remote golf course destination. And, late 2014, 2015, it was tough. So we wanted to be able to keep people employed and not have to outsource everything. So that's kind of how we ended up taking on more and more.
When is your peak season, and how would you describe a typical day, if there's such thing as a typical day in this industry, during that peak season?
Great question. We open in April, normally April 1st, and then we get prime rates or prime seasons May through end of September, early October. Like right now, I want to say it's 71 degrees outside, sunny, and a breath of wind. Perfect golf weather. Grass is starting to slow down a little bit right now, but if people want to come out here, it's May, September, June. Those are the months to come. By the time you get July, August, you're up into the 100-degree days. You're 105, 106, maybe even 110. A couple of years ago, we had a couple of days of 110, which is hot for us. And it's, turn the water on and water as much as you can and get out of the way and try not to cause any damage. As far as typical peak season, we start at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Depends on what's going on. We have a crew of about 20 to 24 any given day, depending on some part-timers and, guys' schedules, that kind of thing. So let's say like a typical Friday morning, we're mowing fairways, we're spinning bunkers, we're mowing greens and rolling. We got a guy working on irrigation, we're detailing around the clubhouse, mowing the range tee, and all these things, these little detail things that add up to one big thing, which creates the product that we have. I think it's one of those things is we designed the maintenance practices to be in front of golf, right? So we try to start 2 hours in front of our first tee time. And then we try to stay in front of a 3-hour round of golf. So that's 5-hour morning shift, and then the guys take lunch. That's kind of how we built everything. So that decided how many prairie moors we have, how many triplexes we have, how many rough moors we have, how many carts we have, how many staff we have. And all is trying to stay in front of a 3-hour round of golf to give the best experience possible to the customer, whether it's his 10th time there, his first time there, or his 100th time there. We want it to all be the same.
What is the scene like when you're trying to get ahead of play? How distracting could the sunrise be?
It can be tough, especially if we're starting in the dark and you're coming up and the sunrises are 10, 15 minutes sometimes, and a good cloudy day, they're great. Unfortunately, I'm gonna admit that I've kind of gotten numb to them and sunsets just because I've lived here for 12 years now, and I've seen so many and have so many pictures of them on my phone that you stop and forget about it. I actually, the other day, I was calling my intern on the radio, and I was like, "Hey, Jackson, take a minute, enjoy the sunrise this morning because it's going to get hectic in a little bit with the shotgun. So take 2 minutes and enjoy it because it's going to get crazy." And I hopefully he did it. I'm not sure if he did, but it was one of those times where I made sure to tell him that, hey, take a minute, relax, enjoy this because it's not going to be here forever.
What type of playing conditions are you trying to provide for guests, and how do you go about achieving those conditions?
For us, working with David McClay Kidd, the architect, during construction, when I came to Gamble Sands, I had very little construction. Build a tee here, sod project there, not drainage, install a bunch of drainage. But I didn't really understand golf course construction like I would say I do now. And working with him, and I always ask David, what do you want to have happen? It's your vision, right? The whole golf course is his vision. And he always wanted to see, he always said, I want the ball to bounce. I want to be able to take a divot, and I want to be able to move around and play the ball on the ground. I said, okay, those are good parameters. So what do we do? So one of the reasons we're mowing at 220 on our fairways, 210, 215, depending on the time of year, is to get the ball to react in the fairways on slopes and contours. We have a par 3, number 6, and people who have played here know what hole I'm talking about. Horse carry, about 225, middle of the green from the normal tees. But if you hit it about 160, 170, it's going to catch the slope, and it's going to roll all the way down into the middle of the green. It rolls about maybe 75 yards. A lot more guys are trying to hit that kind of shot. So most golf courses that you think about, parkland golf courses where it's, fairways are at half inch and they're tree lined, they're not going to get that kind of roll. So we want to get that kind of roll. We want We want the shot quality and the shot value and the shot experience to be a long experience. It's 10, 12, 15 seconds of watching your ball move around on the ground from the time you hit it to the time it stops. And that's something that I think is unique to Gamble Sands and other links golf courses. I know, Sand Valley, they have great that kind of shot quality experience kind of thing. And so does Bandon on most of the year, except when it's really wet, of course. But, it's one of those things where that's what we try to accomplish, and that's the goal. So we're going to maintain it to that goal. So what does that mean you got to do? You got to top dress. You got to mow tight. You got to mow more often. We're mowed 3 days a week on fairways for the first 2 years that the golf course was built. Now we're down to 2. You got to control fertility. You got to control moisture. So, we're using different moisture tools, and we're using different wetting units. We try different wetting units every year. I think this year was the first year we finally found one that was cost effective and worked well for us. And we did a pretty darn good job keeping our disease pressure down with fairy ring and that kind of stuff, using that wetting agent to help get the fungicide in the ground, as well as help create a pretty good playing surface. Now as a superintendent, I have pushed the limits a little bit. We had a Barstool Sports event in 2022, and I might have pushed the course a little bit hard. It was probably the hardest, firmest, fastest golf course I've ever put together. The greens were over 13 rolling. The fairways probably stamped at 9.5. And they were under 200. They were dry. They were firm. They were brown. It was awesome. It's fun, but you get one day, right? You got to turn the water on after that. So now we've kind of gone, we think, okay, we knew where we could get to. We got there, take a step back. We kind of have rough numbers. All right, I want the greens to be about 10.5, 10.5. No one complains at 10.5. Want people to get an extra 20 to 30 yards on their tee shot. If they do that, they're excited. I want people to hit a bad kind of, I don't want to say bad shot, but let's say a miss hit. Maybe they skull one a little bit. It still rolls, 90% of where they were trying to hit the ball. So that kind of thing. And it's this thought that golf's hard enough. Let's make it a little bit easier and friendly for people. And if we can make the ball move around a little bit, where you can putt it from 75 yards, that makes it fun. That's what I do. I putt from 50 in pretty much religiously. And I'll play with guys that have never played out here before, and I'll bring out my putter, and they think I'm crazy, and I'll hit it within 20 feet and then make the birdie putt or something, and they think I'm nuts. But I said, hey, that's how I play, and it's fun for me.
Josh, everything about this sounds like a player's dream.
Yeah, I mean, we try. I mean, that's the goal.
What type of turf grass do you have on your fairways and greens?
We have we're fine fescue, and then we also seeded colonial bent grass during our first construction of the first call, the Sands course. Since then, we've only done fine fescue blends, but there's a little bit of creeping red, and then there's some chewings in there. And it's just one of those things of it does very well in this environment. We tried a little bit of creeping bent. I don't think the creeping bent holds up to the heat as well as the fescue does. That's maybe anecdotal, but I know that I have to water the creeping bent a lot more than I have to water the fescue. So whatever you want to read out of that. I know that it's something where we have the ability to control the moisture. And when we can control the moisture on the fescue, it can thrive. We're not fighting what they fight at Bandon and in Scotland, where it's wet all the time and just cloudy and muggy and just we can manipulate things, and the ability to do that creates a really, really good playing surface. I don't know if there's a superintendent out there who says, hey, you're going to have 190 sunny days a year, and your soil is going to be over 50 degrees for that 190 days, and it's not going to rain. You can do whatever you want. Go for it, man. I mean, people would kill to have that. That's the dream. You can schedule, you can manipulate, you can, you put a little bit of N. In fact, put a tenth of a pound of N out, and I can see the reaction instantly versus, oh man, I got rain, and now it's going to get a flush because of the rain, and it's just frustrating. But being able to control everything is huge.
What are some of the potential disease concerns you have on those playing surfaces?
So obviously we've got, we get snow. So we close down end of October. Normally we're done on the golf course by Thanksgiving, and we'll put a snow mold app out. So you get your pink and your gray snow molds. We're going to prevent that. We have a fairy ring issue that BASF has been working with us pretty well on. Chen specifically shout out to Jen Browning, our rock star BASF guru. She's been awesome, and that's kind of how our friendship developed, and she's been great to work with. And then recently we've had a little bit of Pythium pop up. We had a really hot summer 2 summers ago now, and we might have got a little hectic with the water, created some Pythium, and we've had it every year since. And it's been weird times of year. So now we're starting to put some preventatives into our spray program. And then actually, for the first time, we had Dollar Spot about 2 weeks ago on the new golf course. So I want to say that was just probably a little bit too much water we were running, trying to get seed to germinate and grow in a little bit. So I have never seen Dollar Spot on fescue, and we haven't had it yet that I know of. But it's a pretty good sized dinner plate Dollar Spot out there.
How do you go about developing your disease control program, especially when the property is so vast?
I'm gonna go back and think. Our owners are farmers, and they understand that they are the largest apple and cherry grower in Washington, and they understand that plants sometimes need herbicides or fungicides, and they need fertilizer. So it's not a hard sell. Like, hey, we have Prairie Rig. This is what it looks like with this. Do we like this look? Well, no, we don't like that look. Okay. This is what it's going to cost to not have that. We're like, okay, we will work that in the budget. Like, that was literally the conversation. And it seems stupid, but it was that simple because they understand. It's not just a dollar thing to them. They understand the quality, what we're trying to accomplish. They get it. And they're a great ownership to work with and that kind of thing. So when it comes to developing the program, it's what do we need, knowing that we have some contingency built in to spray all of our shortgrass. I normally don't try to treat the rough. For fairy ring in the rough, I'll just fertilize, I'll spray iron in it or something and try to mask it or whatever. But I'm not really worried about the rough. And we have so little rough that it's really not at the end of the world. I'm mostly worried about tees, fairways, and greens. That's what our fairy ring program is and our fungicide program. When it gets down to snow mold, though, we do spray. We do spray the whole golf course. So going back to that contingency thing, so we have some money built in contingency-wise to be able to spray, let's say, chlorothalonil, right? If I had, 200 acres of chlorothalonil on the shelf at any given time, or let's say mancozeb, something that I can put out quickly, relatively inexpensive, but it covers most of the things that I'm going to probably see in a year. That app is always on the shelf. And that is something that everybody's comfortable with, GM's comfortable with it, ownership's comfortable with that. Having that product to be, hey, oh shoot, we got something that pops up over the weekend we want to spray. Because like I was saying earlier, everybody has to have the same experience customer-wise. And I don't want there to be an issue with, their fairways don't look good, or their greens don't look good because of XYZ. It wasn't worth the $300 round. That's not what we're trying to make it, that $300, that was so cheap. That's such a great golf course. We want to go back. Man, that's so good. That's the kind of reaction we're looking for. And if it's, $100,000 in fungicide, over 220 acres, it's a small price to pay.
Do you deal with different microclimates, and how do you handle those microclimates when building your disease control programs?
Yeah, not to the extent that most other golf courses do. We don't have shade issues. We've got, I say we don't have trees, right? So we don't really have shade issues. We do have a couple areas that are a little bit colder. We really don't do anything different there. Sometimes, they'll have frost on them longer. We spray those about a week later in the spring because the soils haven't warmed up yet. They're not moving. We kind of treat that. But we're not really doing anything extra to those areas. It's only 1 or 2 spots, and it's in the same little gulch that goes to the golf course. But it's not really a huge concern yet. We did lose probably 10% of one of the greens a couple years ago from actually putting too much sand out and it freezing up and then sealing off the top, and we couldn't get to it to clean it off. But other than that, it's just we try to treat everything the same and make a great playing surface all the way through.
Before we get back to Josh, another word from the disease discussion sponsor. Turf that's second best isn't good enough. Your goal is to be the GOAT, the greatest of all turf. Intrinsic brand fungicides from BASF don't meet the bar, they raise it. Take the health of your turf to the next level with superior disease control, increased growth efficiency, and enhanced stress tolerance. These foundational fungicides are formulated to deliver superior plant health benefits that set the gold standard in the golf course industry. with the science to back it up. Refuse to settle for good enough. Strive for greatness with the power of the intrinsic brand fungicides. Visit betterturf.basf.us to learn more. Now back to our conversation with Josh. Josh, how does controlling disease on the new golf course that you're growing in compare to controlling disease on an existing golf course, and how cognizant of disease must you be when you're doing a grow-in?
I'm lucky. This will be my third grow-in here on property. First the sands course, then the quicksands, which is the par 3, and now the new golf course. So I kind of knew what to expect, right? So we could to be preventative for pythium, because you're going to get melting out of pythium early on when you're watering. It's 105 and you're watering 10 times a day. You're going to get it. So you know that you're going to spray and you're going to put the gamut out there, and you're going to kill everything, and that's okay. One thing we did run into is we weren't able to spray fast enough. We had a sprayer go down, so we only had one sprayer. So, we couldn't spray fast enough, and we kind of moved some stuff and we had to reseed it. But it's part of the process growing in. You're going to get disease. You know that going into it. It's in the budget. Ownership knows it. David the kid knows it. He understands what's going on, and it's one of those things of you just know and you expect it, and you kind of every 14 to 21 days you're going to be spraying. And it's the hard thing. The hard thing during the growing is all your golf holes are at different evolutions, and so they obviously need different water at different evolutions because they're all a week to 10 days apart depending on how fast we were going. So I might be spray. So I seeded it. It pops in 7 to 10 days. 14 to 21 days we're mowing it, and then in between that first mow and the second mow, you're probably spraying a fungicide out. But then you're doing that on 8 different holes on 8 different rotations. So you're almost spraying something every day. And keeping track of where you're at is probably the hardest part. And you got to write it all down, and you got to have a good guy spraying to make sure you're keeping up on it. Oh, hey, I didn't get this little corner, because inevitably, right, where 2 holes come together, there could be a triangle that gets missed, and then you see it 2 days later and it's smoked. And then you're all right, well, I guess we'll get the seeder back out and reseed it, because that would be the cheapest solution at this point. And that's going to happen, and sometimes it does happen.
What's your approach to incorporating new products and tactics into your program? Do you just keep going with what works, or would you consider yourself a bit of a tweaker?
I always try to reevaluate every year about what we're trying to do, and did that make sense? Did I like it? Did we like it? Did the things happen? Did the golfer like it? Did the ball react the way we wanted to during that time? Whether it's fertilizer, the way we top dress, the amount of sand we put out top dressing, what our aerification schedules, all these things that we do as maintenance guys. Even when do we mow? Because we talked about mowing in the afternoon one time because you get a better cut. So all these products and things that we do on the golf course, and products we apply. Well, you have to. I feel, and I was taught this young, that you always have to constantly evaluate what you're doing, and maybe what worked one year isn't going to work the next year, or vice versa, or it's not going to work in 5 years. So you rebuild the program every year, and we're in the process of budgeting for next year, and obviously having a new golf course and all this stuff. And so it's kind of a shot in the dark on the new golf course. We're not quite sure. We've kind of had to put our equipment order in already, and it's an educated guess. It's a pretty good guess. I think we're about 98% there on the new equipment, but I'm not sure what exactly is going to work and what the most efficient is. But I know that we're going to figure it out, and we're going to do the best we can with what we got. I think that when it comes to new products, I'm willing to try anything, but to a certain point in certain areas.
When a distributor or manufacturer comes to you saying that they have a new fungicide that's on the market or getting ready to reach the market, what are you looking for when you're testing that fungicide?
Well, it's got to be, I had an old boss who said, if it doesn't have a price, it doesn't exist. So don't come and all my vendors know this. Don't come and say, hey, I got this new thing. It'll be out in 6 months. Well, that doesn't do me good. Let's not even talk about it. So what am I looking for? But what am I looking for in something new? I'm looking for, depends if I'm spreading it or spraying it or all those things. So let's say I'm trying to spray a product, right? I want it to be clean and easy to handle. I want it to be, I want to feel like I'm getting my bang for my buck. I'm a big proponent of, I don't like a lot of extra things in my products, right? So I can get regular ferrous sulfate as my iron source. It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's tough to mix sometimes or whatever, but I'm more of a meat and potatoes kind of guy. So I don't want a product that has 17 different things in it that, I've got to dial back this iron because it's already got a little bit of iron in it. No, I just want straight urea, or I just want a straight ammonium sulfate, and I will figure out the rest of it. And I will mix my own little cocktail depending on time of year and depending on what I'm looking for, or I want to get some things in my roots, get my roots going. I want to be able to make my own decisions, not be predetermined by a product. So, if I could go into like the candy store and I'm going to get a little bit of M&Ms, I'm going to get a little bit of Reese's peanut butter cups, and I'm going to get a little bit of chocolate covered pretzels, and then I'm going to go, and that's what I'm taking home. That's the kind of theory I have when it comes to spraying and my fertilizer program.
What have you learned about fairy ring control over the years, and what's the key to a successful fairy ring control program?
Oh, man, don't miss an app, even by a day. They say if BASF come out and say, hey, you need to spray every 28 days, you better be spraying at 27. Because if you miss that one day, it makes a big difference. Find a good wetting agent that works for you, that's cost effective, that you can spray at 21 days, and create your fertilizer program around that application. That's been the most effective for us. Spraying 100, plus that one. So I think we're about 95 acres of shortgrass right now on the golf course and the quicksand on the par 3. It takes a couple of days to spray for us. So we create our whole program around, we're only going to spray everything once every 28 days. So what else do you want to put in with your fert, your wetting agent, any other micros you want to put in? We've gotten away from growth regulators, which we've learned to control our growth with fertilizer and water versus Primo or Anew. So I think it's one of those things of know what you're trying to do, and don't be upset if it takes you 2 years or even 3 years to dial in your fairy ring program. It's taken us 3 years, and we look great now. We've got, obviously you're going to get some breakthrough. That's just part of the world we live in, right? It can't be perfect all the time, but I mean, we might have on 90 acres, 95 acres, I bet we have under 5 3-foot rings of fairy ring, versus 5 years ago, we were losing turf, the size of a basketball everywhere, every, 10 to 15 spots like that, every fairway. So it's obviously doing something. It's good for us. We haven't really changed our aerification process much. We're still solid tining. We're still pulling a core in some of our low areas or collection areas. We've increased our sand a little bit to try to get things moving. We haven't changed the way we water. We've just changed our wetting agent every year, and we found one that we kind of like. We're probably going to go with the same one next year. It's cost effective, and just stick with the program. Trust your gut, and then if you have a question, call your rep. Don't try to make a decision on your own. And yeah, they're going to try to sell you more stuff sometimes, but hey, this is when I talk to Jen, right? I'll call Jen, say, Jen, I'm worried about XYZ weather coming. What do you think? This is what I've got in the barn. What do you think I can use? And, she'll say, hey, well, you could try this, or you could try that. You could try this in these areas, these known areas that you have problems, spray this product because what you got on the shelf. But don't be afraid of it. Be proactive and, just educate people, educate yourself, educate your ownership, educate your GM, educate your assistants. The more eyes you have on it, the more people thinking, you're gonna come up with a solution that's gonna be good, and you're gonna figure it out.
I knew it got hot in the middle of Washington. I didn't realize that it got hot for that long and well into the hundreds. How has it helped you and the playing conditions you're trying to provide that some fungicides have come out in the last 3 to 5 years that work really well in the heat?
It hasn't really been something that we've really been worried about. I'm not choosing the fungicides based on that they're heat tolerant. I mean, we spray at night, which is something that I brought from another golf course I worked at, just because we were a resort there too. And I've translated that here. I've got a guy comes in, 2 guys will come in at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and they'll spray all night long, and they'll get out of here about 8 or 9 in the morning, and that's the way we do it. So it's not like we're trying to spray when it's 105. A big thing that we learned also was, get water on it relatively quickly. I wouldn't say right away. So let's say we put a little bit of N in there. We'll leave that on our iron or something. We'll leave that in, let it soak in for a couple hours, and then try to run water on it, just to kind of cool it down and wash it in. So heat's not really a huge determining factor when it comes to choosing our fungicides.
Okay, we're going to make a big shift here. This is going to be like going from links golf to parkland golf. Let's talk about people now. And I know that's a topic you're very
Okay.
passionate about. How do you develop a team at a major golf resort where you need a lot of employees in such a remote location like the one you're in?
Yeah. So when I got here, I had two guys that had worked on a previous project locally. His name was Luis Palladia. We call him Rambo. He got that nickname from one of the owners, and then a guy named Juan Ramos, and he's now gone to something else. But Rambo has been with me for 12 years, and it's kind of something where you came in, you're the only one who really knew what was going on, and you just found people that matched your personality and that wanted to work with you and keep working and keep moving forward. The things that I found that was the simplest things to do. One was pay at least what they're making in the orchards, right? We offer them uniforms. We offer them, as crazy as it sounds, we offer them a flush toilet. They're not using a porta potty like they do in the orchards. So that's where our competitors are as far as like jobs. We offer them a break room. We offer them lunches from time to time, bring pizza in, or the restaurant will have leftover food from a banquet that they're not going to resell, or they can't make into something else, and they'll still give it to the maintenance crew. We just treat them with respect and kindness and try to give them a little bit of ownership in what they're doing. And that's developed over time. Now, don't get me wrong. We've all had employees that don't match the team and the team atmosphere. But the best thing we ever did was to get rid of those employees. And the guys who see that say, hey, I'm going to make something. John Smith isn't working up to snuff. He's not working. He's kind of being lazy. He's on a cell phone all the time or whatever it is. Hey, John, you got to do this, and this better. And okay, yeah, John. Oh, yeah. They would say, oh, yeah, no problem. Yep, sorry about that. Everyone's super apologetic. 2 days later, he's still doing the same thing. Hey, John, this isn't going to work. Man, you got to get off this. That's morning number 2. Morning number 3, hey, you're done. We'll find somebody else. Not being held hostage to employees is huge. And I would recommend any manager going out, because once you to feel like you're not held hostage, hey, I just need a body. That's not the way it works. Because then if you kind of start getting rid of the bad apples, the guys that are good will really flourish. And they will create that team atmosphere. And then they're only going to recommend guys that are going to fit in that team atmosphere. And once you get to that point, and that takes a couple of years, right? It's trial and error, and it's learning, and it's, you're going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Once you get to that point, then it starts to gel. And then that's when things are good. And once they're good, they're good. So when we get to that point, then you can start adding layers, moving people up. I just had one of our employees now, she's going to become our admin. She's taking on some other things off my plate. But she started as a greenskeeper, raking bunkers and moving tee blocks. And now she's going to be our admin. And, she's bilingual, so she can talk to everybody. And she's a good conduit for the crew. And, it just creates this kind of family and this gel, and this people just come together. And it seems simple. And it's yes, not everyone's perfect. Not everybody. Some people make mistakes, and that's fine. But they start self-policing, and Rambo's notorious for going up to a guy and say, "Hey, man, that's not the way we do things here. We do it this way." And he will show them. And like, "Oh, okay. Well, if Rambo told me to do it this way, then I know that's the right way to do it." And once you get to that point, it makes it easy. As a manager, that's awesome. I don't have to babysit everybody. That's what starts making it fun.
In 2023, you established the Wingman Program for Assistant Superintendents. How would you describe that program, and how do you envision it helping not only Gamble Sands, but the industry?
I have to admit, the program was not originally my idea. I was down in Monterey, California. I worked at the Clarks down there for a couple of years, and they had something called the Assistant Superintendent Boot Camp, where all the assistants would get together from that area and do some training and some classes and play golf and get to know each other and get to know vendors. And that's kind of where I took it from. Ours is morphed in something a little bit different. It's a couple more days, and you stay on site and that kind of thing. But the whole reason that I enjoyed it was trying to get. I think as superintendents, we get invited to things. We get invited to golf trips. We get invited to go. We get to go to other things. We get to go to national show. We get to go to up here in the Pacific Northwest. They have what they call the NTA. Northwest Turfgrass Association meeting, and there's some golf involved, and you kind of get to know people. But as assistants, a lot of times those guys don't get invited to that stuff. They don't get to go. Maybe they don't get to go to national. They don't get to go to the NTA. They don't get to go to meetings. And if we're going to have superintendents in 25 years, well, we got to keep these kids involved, get these guys up to snuff, because we all need them. There's not a superintendent out there that I believe would say, yeah, I just got too many good assistants. No one's going to say that, right? So we need to invest in these kids and get that motivation going and get their fire burning a little bit. Otherwise, they're going to go off and be an electrician, or be a plumber. And I feel like for our industry to survive, we need those guys. And one easy way to do it was to, I just started reaching out to vendors, and Jen was one of them. I think Jen was one of the first ones. Like, hey, Jen, what can we do to get these kids involved? And her and I kind of started talking, and like, hey, let's do this, and we'll invite these people. And so if those of you don't know, what we do is the assistants come out on a Thursday. We have dinner, and the vendors we all put the dinner on, and it's just basically a meet and greet, and it's a social thing, and you're talking to people, meeting, oh, hey, I'm John from wherever, whatever, And then the next morning we have breakfast, and we have 6 hours of class, and each sponsor, everything's paid for by vendors. So each sponsor gets a certain amount of time to talk about a product that we use here at Gamble Sands. Whether it be Jen always brings somebody, and she'll talk about Fairy Rain or whatever. And Toro, we have a Toro irrigation system. So Toro will talk about irrigation. And I try to keep it not necessarily Toro specific, but more generalized irrigation knowledge. So they did an hour on irrigation audit, and a lot of the assistants didn't even know how to do an audit. And to me, in irrigation audit, it's pretty simple, right? You set the cans up, you get a certain amount of distance apart, you run the heads, measure the water rate. Pretty simple. But a lot of these guys didn't know that stuff, so they thought it was great, but it wasn't. Hey, it's not a sales pitch at the end of the day. Don't, it's not Toro saying buy my product, or BASF or whoever, Helena Agrichem isn't going to buy our product. It's more of a, hey, this is a general knowledge thing moving forward. And then once we do the class, we have golf. That afternoon we play golf, and then we have another dinner. And the next morning we've done some other classes in the following morning, and then they depart. So it's, one full day, 2 nights. The price is relatively reasonable. It's something we get to show off. And, selfishly for me at Gamble Sands, I get to meet a bunch of assistants and maybe have a possible connection with a guy. And maybe, it's kind of like an interview process. Oh, hey, I remember that guy. Yeah, oh, yeah, he was out here before. That kind of thing. So maybe it's something where one of those guys will be a superintendent here at Gamble Sands one day. But that's kind of the whole reason the Wingman started. And I think it's been pretty successful. Prune's now on board. They came down last year and supported us, and they're going to support us again next year. So that's huge, for us being a Truan course, and having them involved is good. The next step would be to opening it up more, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, maybe getting into Montana, North Cal, getting some of those guys in here, and and maybe 4 or 5 years, it's a national thing, and people are flying up from I don't know, the East Coast. I don't know. We'll see. You never know where it's going to go, and we'll get out of it what we put into it.
2 last things here real quick. How much more challenging would the job be if you didn't have the relationships you have with companies like BASF and Jen? I mean, how much easier does it make your job when you do cultivate those strong working relationships with the companies that serve this industry?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a chessboard. I'm moving the pieces around. Jen's whispering ideas in my ear, and we're going to make it work. I mean, it's huge. It makes all the difference in the world to know I can call somebody up and have a response quickly, or hey, if I don't know the answer, they're going to find it out for me and be a part of the team. And that's huge. And I try to make sure the vendors know that they're involved. This is something that we're doing together. And I think a lot of them like it, and I try to make time for them. I learned something from a guy that I know. I never worked for him, but Jeff Marco, he's down at Cypress Point, down in Monterey, California. And I've talked to him multiple times. We kind of hung out a little bit. We know each other. And he always said, I try to make time for vendors. Even if they show up unannounced, I'll make time for them. And I've always kind of tried to do the same thing to develop that relationship. Now, do I have time every time? No. But I still try to say hello. hey, I got 15 minutes. We can go cruise around and look at something. I got 15 minutes, and okay, let's go. But being able to spend time and know that, hey, somebody drove 2 hours to come see you, the least you can do is spend an hour with them, and it's not, hey, let's go buy lunch. No, let's go cruise around, look at the golf course. We'll talk about some turf stuff. I try to make sure that, hey, if you took the time to come out here, and you took the time to come out here and, you took 2 hours out of your day, I'm going to at least try to buy something from you, or at least get some pricing from you and think about something, and talk about something and try to change something we're doing. I think that's important, because then there's that ability to trust me. And once you trust each other, then you can work together.
Okay, we started this podcast with some visualization. Let's end it with some visualization. What will 2025 look like around Gamble Sands?
2025 will look like a new hotel, a new golf course, another 25 guys on the maintenance crew, a lot of things moving in a lot of different directions, and huge growth. We're looking to open the new golf course August 1st. So to go from, seeding the first golf hole on the first golf course to 50 holes is pretty special and a very unique opportunity. And I feel very honored and blessed to be here, and had the tutelage from the teachers I had throughout my career to get to where I am. The first superintendent that was here, Chip Caswell, still a great friend of mine, now works for David Kidd. I wouldn't be where I was without him. And Jeff Steen over at Spanish Bay. I worked for Jeff for a long time, well, 2.5 years at Spanish Bay. And he was a great mentor to me, and Mike Goldsberry at Wing Point, who's still there. Those were all great mentors to me, and they've all taught me something about the industry. And I'm very thankful to all three of those guys for what they did for me.
Well, Josh, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for the time. I know there's a lot going on at Gamble Sands, and there's still people out there playing golf, and you're growing things in and building structure. So we really appreciate the time, and best of luck with the winter and everything your team is facing here in the upcoming year.
Thank you guys for letting me do this. And, it's always a pleasure. And I'll talk golf any day of the week, and just get me in front of a mic and we'll make it happen.